They thought she was just another over-promoted officer, a token in a uniform too clean for the mud it walked through. The morning air at Coronado Bay was heavy, thick with salt and fog, the kind that blurred the line between breath and discipline. Boots hit the ground in rhythm, a formation of men who'd learned to move like machinery. She was the one sound out of place, softer, quieter, deliberate. Lieutenant Rhea Voss. The only woman in a platoon that didn't believe she belonged there. They said she had connections, that her father was some admiral's friend, that the paperwork was greased long before she ever touched the obstacle course. The whispers weren't spoken loudly. They didn't need to be. They traveled through glances, through half-smiles, through the way her name was skipped when the roll call came too fast. It wasn't hate, not yet. Just disbelief wrapped in arrogance. The kind that builds slowly, like rust on steel. She didn't argue. She didn't try to prove them wrong. She simply moved. One more push-up, one more mile, one more rep. The silence around her wasn't weakness. It was calculation. Every insult, every side-eye, every snicker under the breath. She stored them like rounds in a magazine. Now, before we show you the exact moment she turned their plan against them, think about this. How long could you stay quiet when every word against you was earned by nothing but envy? Would you fight back right away, or wait until the proof spoke louder than rage? Because Rhea knew something they didn't. In the SEALs, power doesn't shout. It watches. It waits. And when it moves, it never misses. By the time the sun burned through the fog, the word trust had already lost its meaning. The commander barked it like a challenge. Trust drill. 2 teams. No excuses. The men smirked, boots crunching over gravel as they broke into groups. It sounded simple enough. Blindfolds, weighted packs, coordination. But somewhere between the briefing tent and the field, 3 of them decided the rules could bend. They called it team building. What they meant was target practice. In the storage shed, while the others hydrated and stretched, they switched out her gear. Added 10 extra pounds of steel plates to her pack. Cut the stability straps just enough to loosen mid-run. One of them laughed under his breath, not cruelly, but confidently, as if justice was on his side. To them, this wasn't bullying. This was putting her in her place. A reminder that some uniforms, no matter how pressed, would never carry the same weight as theirs. Rhea watched. She didn't need proof to know when something had shifted. The energy was different, the kind of quiet that hums before lightning hits. She didn't call them out, didn't warn the instructor. Her heartbeat stayed steady, eyes scanning the horizon like a sniper measuring wind. She'd been through worse and darker places, and none of it left witnesses. As they lined up, she adjusted her gear once more. Her fingers paused over the strap, the one that would snap before mile 2. Then she smiled, faintly, almost imperceptibly, like she was sharing a secret with the ground itself. Maybe she was. Before we show you what happened when the drill began, ask yourself something. If you knew someone was planning your downfall, would you expose them right away, or let them walk straight into the trap they built for you? Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's the sharpest weapon in the room. And Rhea was already loading it. The drill began like every other. Shouts, whistles, the grind of boots pounding through dust. Rhea's pack bit into her shoulders, heavier than regulation, but she didn't slow. Every step was calculated, every breath measured. Ahead, the others sprinted like hounds chasing a scent. Behind her, 3 shadows broke formation. No one noticed, or maybe no one cared. The course twisted through the hangar, steel walls amplifying every sound. The slam of crates, the clang of metal, the harsh command of an instructor too far away to see what mattered. Rhea's strap gave out first, the one they'd loosened. The pack swung sideways, dragging her balance. She stumbled, caught herself, kept going. The second hit came harder. A shoulder, deliberate. She fell against the grating, palms scraping open. No one reached down. "Keep moving," someone barked. Laughter followed, the kind that hides behind orders. Another shove, then another. The mock capture was supposed to simulate restraint under pressure, but this wasn't a drill anymore. Hands gripped too tightly, kicks landed where they shouldn't. The impact was dull, rhythmic, like the hangar itself was keeping count. Somewhere in that blur, Rhea stopped reacting. Not frozen, not broken, just watching. She saw every face, memorized every voice that stayed silent, every grin that flickered before guilt set in. She knew who led it and who followed. Blood ran down her forearm, slow and dark, but her pulse stayed steady. In the chaos, she cataloged everything: gear numbers, timestamps, position markers. Not emotion, evidence. By the time the instructors noticed, the damage was done. The men backed away, panting, hiding their laughter behind excuses. She got up slowly, brushed the dust off, and nodded to no one in particular. It wasn't defiance. It was a promise, quiet, heavy, certain. Now, before we show you what she did next, pause and think. If the world mistook your patience for weakness, how far would you let it go before proving them wrong? Because she wasn't waiting for permission anymore. She was waiting for the right angle, and when she found it, no one would see it coming. The tent smelled of antiseptic and canvas, the kind of clean that burns instead of comforts. Rhea sat on the cot, hands still trembling from adrenaline she refused to show. Her knuckles were raw, her lips split, but her posture stayed perfect, back straight, eyes fixed on the corner of the room. A medic muttered something about ice packs and left. The flap closed. Silence reclaimed her. When the commanding officer entered, it wasn't concern that followed him. It was inconvenience. He scanned her chart, sighed, and said the words that were supposed to mean closure. "We'll handle it internally, Lieutenant. Focus on recovery." Then he was gone before she could answer. She didn't bother trying. She'd heard apologies like that before. Polished, procedural, hollow. The kind meant to bury an incident, not address it. That night, the camp slept under low lights and restless guilt. Rhea sat alone in the records office, its hum of old computers echoing like distant waves. She unlocked a drawer, slid out a single black folder stamped Joint Ops, Internal Review. Her fingerprints matched. The system beeped once and accepted her code. The file wasn't about her, it was hers. The insignia inside wasn't standard training command. It was intelligence division clearance. She scrolled through classified forms, her name listed under embedded assessment officer. She wasn't just another trainee. She'd been placed here for evaluation, discipline testing, integrity analysis, covert culture review. And the men who attacked her had just turned her assignment into evidence. She closed the file gently, as if it were a living thing. The bruises on her body didn't matter now. She'd learned long ago that revenge works better when it looks like accountability. The quiet in her chest wasn't calm, it was calculation. The kind that builds before a storm that doesn't shout when it arrives. Now, before we show you what happens when truth walks into the daylight, remember this. Power doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs to be patient. And patience, in her hands, was already turning into a weapon. The morning sun cut across the training yard, sharp and cold, illuminating dust motes that hung like suspended judgment. Rhea stepped onto the field alone, her boots silent against the gravel, her uniform unassuming, but her presence undeniable. No one applauded. No one whispered. And yet, every eye found her, drawn not by rank, but by the sense that something had shifted overnight. She carried nothing but a small tablet, its screen dark until she tapped it. A hush fell over the assembled unit, trainees, instructors, and a few senior officers lingering from the previous day. The tension was a living thing, curling around shoulders, tightening jaws. Rhea didn't speak yet. She let the anticipation build, a measured pause that drew in every breath, every heartbeat. Then the screen flickered to life. Helmet cam footage streamed across the display. Grainy, raw, undeniable. She didn't narrate. She didn't editorialize. The sabotage revealed itself in stark detail. Loose straps, shifted weights, deliberate shoves. The so-called trust drill was exposed for what it was, a premeditated humiliation. The laughter, the jabs, the careful, cruel orchestration. Each moment played with surgical clarity. Eyes widened. Faces paled. The men who had smiled yesterday now froze, swallowed by the gravity of their own actions caught in digital permanence. Maddox's smirk vanished, replaced by the weight of undeniable evidence. Lar's jaw tightened, Sutter's shoulders sagged. None could explain what the footage didn't forgive. Then, the commanding officer stepped forward. Not in anger, not in theatrics. Just a salute, crisp, precise, final. Recognition. Rhea's calm had forced the truth into the open, and the truth demanded acknowledgement. She wasn't just a lieutenant in training. She was embedded from joint operations, assigned to evaluate team discipline under extreme stress. Her authority was invisible until revealed, and now it was absolute. Consequences arrived without spectacle. Orders were given with clipped efficiency, suspensions, reassignment, administrative separation. Careers that had felt untouchable the day before ended quietly but irreversibly. Justice didn't scream. It logged, verified, and corrected. Every observer felt the ripple. Power had shifted, and the underdog now held the measure of authority. Rhea stepped back, her posture unchanged, her expression unreadable. She didn't gloat. She didn't explain. She allowed the silence to do the work, letting the lesson settle deep. Sometimes, she had learned, the most effective strike isn't in the moment of anger. It is in letting patience, observation, and measured truth dismantle arrogance without a single raised fist. The morning light spilled across the barracks like quiet judgment. Rhea moved with the same precision she had carried through every drill, every obstacle, every test of endurance. Her uniform was immaculate, every crease sharp, boots polished to mirror the sun. No one spoke. No one followed. The courtyard felt alive, but she walked through it as if it were empty, leaving only the faint echo of purpose in her wake. Trainees paused mid-step, eyes tracking her movements. Not out of fear, not out of guilt, but respect. Something about the way she carried herself, unshaken, unreadable, disciplined, demanded it. No speeches, no dramatics, no posturing. Just a woman who had been underestimated, tested, and had emerged not only unbroken but elevated. A younger recruit hesitated near the edge of the quad, boots shuffling against gravel. The question came quietly, almost afraid to disturb the air. "Commander, what would you have done if no one believed you?" Rhea paused, letting the words hang like a weight. Her gaze softened, but only just, revealing the faintest trace of understanding. "Then I would have trained them myself," she said. Simple, direct, certain, no flourish. The words carried more power than any punishment could have, because they implied mastery without malice, authority earned, not demanded. She finished packing her duffel with methodical care, each item folded, each strap tightened. Every motion mirrored the discipline that had carried her through betrayal, sabotage, and silent observation. Those who watched saw more than a uniform. They saw a standard. They saw the embodiment of patience, skill, and restraint. The camp seemed smaller when she stepped out, the hum of daily routines now a soft backdrop to the quiet myth she left in her wake. No one laughed. No one whispered beyond admiration. Her presence lingered like a lesson that true power does not announce itself, does not seek applause. It commands respect simply by existing and by enduring when others falter. And as she walked into the morning sun, the younger recruit's gaze followed, memorizing her stride, understanding without explanation. For those willing to see, the lesson was clear. Strength is not in reaction, but in mastery, and in knowing that silence, patience, and unwavering resolve can shape not only outcomes, but the very way people see you forever. The camera drifts over the empty training compound, dust swirling gently across the asphalt, the skeletal frames of obstacle towers casting long, angular shadows in the late afternoon sun. Silence hangs thick, broken only by the faint whisper of wind brushing against metal and sand. It's a quiet the desert knows well, indifferent, yet oddly reverent. They said the desert forgets everything. The voice begins, low and measured. But the men who tied that rope, they still remember the day justice drove in through the dust. The words settle over the compound like a weight, carrying the echoes of accountability, patience, and consequence. A pause. A moment that stretches just long enough for the viewer to feel the gravity of every calculated choice, every silent observation that led to the outcome. The stillness is not empty. It is alive with memory, with lessons carved into both flesh and mind. "What would you have done?" the narrator asks, voice calm but insistent. "Obeyed the order, or cut the rope yourself?" The question doesn't ask for right or wrong. It asks for reflection, for a weighing of courage against obedience, ethics against instinct. It places the viewer squarely in the moral center of the story, challenging assumptions and stirring empathy, judgment, and curiosity all at once. The dust swirls higher, catching the sun, a visual echo of the earlier chaos now stilled. In this emptiness, the lesson lingers. Discipline, observation, and restraint often shape outcomes far more profoundly than anger or reaction. Power is quiet. Authority is deliberate. Justice doesn't always need to roar. If this story made you pause, think, or feel a spark of something deep inside, leave your answer in the comments. We read every one. And if you want to follow the next mission, the next challenge, the next story of strength in the shadows, hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell. Because the lessons that last aren't always the loudest. They're the ones you carry with you.